let's move on from the Sydney Mardi Gras, from one extreme to another, I suppose, talking about something that's really, really consuming the airways, so to speak, where almost every second article, every second thing that we're talking about right now is AI. ChatGPT. Dr. Rod, have you had a play around with ChatGPT yet?
No, I've been too busy in meetings and so on, but it's something that I do have to come to terms with, because apart from being a pastor, I'm a part-time university lecturer.
Mm-hmm.
And ChatGPT is featured in a lot of discussions in recent times because of its potential to write essays for people. Mm-hmm. And it does a reasonably good job, although I think there would be ways of writing essay questions that would make the ChatGPT response difficult. If you ask certain questions or set certain tasks that have a very strong conservative bent, ChatGPT will quite probably decline to provide your answer because there's a human mind or human minds that sit behind it. Anyway, that's far too long an answer to your very short question.
No, I was very much the same. I was reading a lot about it. Whenever I went to jump on to give it a go, it always said, "Server's full. Try back later." And I eventually got onto it, had a bit of a play around with it. I must admit, I didn't get as amazing, but and I know that there is a bit of a way that you do actually need. There's actually a bit of engineering with how you actually communicate with it. So that's actually quite interesting. But what I actually want to talk about with ChatGPT today is more looking from a business perspective, as a business leader and in ministry as well as leaders in general. We're talking about controlling the controllables. There is something that's coming now, and it's called AI. And we can't control it, right? And I don't mean it's like Skynet and it's going to, like the Terminator, and we can't control the robots. What I'm saying is we can't control what's happening, because we're in this new wave. Like this, people were talking about metaverse, a couple of months ago, that's going to be Web 3.0. No, I actually think that this whole ChatGPT AI thing, that is what Web 3.0 is. That's the next generation of things that we're facing. And as leaders in business, I mean, I'm already talking with my clients about it. I'm already talking with my team, my digital marketing team. We're already talking about how we shift, because it's completely changing the game with how everything's done. And so we as leaders in business and in ministries and everything like that need to be well aware, and especially like someone like yourself, Dr. Rod, at universities, you have to be careful of how these things are actually going to impact how our businesses right now, and also into the future, into the very near future. But one person that I think did an amazing job of responding to this was Microsoft's CEO. Now I'm going to read his name so I can say it correctly. Satya Nadella. I think that's how you pronounce his name. But I saw this amazing interview of him on The Verve. All the links to our articles that we're talking about are down in the descriptions, and usually a few YouTube video links as well. So check out the description. There's always stuff down there. But there's this amazing article. I actually saw the interview that The Verge did on YouTube, and then they've also got an article here. I encourage you, go and watch it. Go and watch it. If you're a leader, I want you to watch it from two aspects. I want you to, first of all, go and watch CEO Satya. Yash, am I saying that correctly? I think he is of Indian descent. Satya, am I saying that correctly? Yes. Give me a thumbs up. Am I saying it correctly? Satya. Thank you. Satya. Perfect. Satya. So have a look at him and see how he was actually responding to the questions, how he carried himself. I think from first of all, from a leadership perspective, he carried himself with great humility, right? It was amazing with the humility that he was carrying himself with, and the confidence that he had and how he was responding and everything like that as well. So I actually find that I want to encourage you, watch that video back and see how you can sorry, Yash, do you mind muting yourself? I can hear myself through. Perfect. Thanks. The joys of live, doing things live. The way he carries himself, the way he responds, how generous he is in talking about the competition, because normally it's all about crushing the competition or not even acknowledging him, but he really praises the competition, which is Google, and just kind of talks competitively, but from a place of humility. So first of all, I want you to watch it from that perspective and see how you can carry yourself in that, how you would carry yourself in a similar situation. The second way I would suggest you looking at it is just looking at from how he's responding from a technology change standpoint, how he's responding to the evolution of this technology that is changing right before our eyes. What we're in is like the iPhone being released. That's what we're kind of talking about. And even before that, calculators, going on what Dr. Rob was saying, he has to now, it can write essays for you. It's kind of like when the calculator was made available to students, that they could just calculate the maths equation. Now, how do we respond? So we as business people, as leaders in business, in ministry, and in all areas of life, we need to be able to respond to those technology changes, which I encourage you, go and watch the video and watch him from a standpoint of how he carries himself as a leader, but also how he responded to technology changes. You're talking about how ChatGPT is now linking up with Bing and what they're doing now with literally an open playing field in front of them. They're not having to, adapt. They're not having to try to compete. There is literally this new thing, and it's a blank slate for everyone, and no one has the advantage at the moment. Dr. Rod, what's your take on his, how he carries himself and even just the things that he was talking about, of how we actually should respond as leaders to these immense changes that we're about to face?
Well, I have to confess that I didn't see the whole of that interview. I have seen part of it. Look, I think he bore himself very well indeed, and actually did show some very good leadership qualities. And I think as a Christian, I don't like a kind of Darwinian model of competition in the market.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's perfectly fine. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, you see, then the fittest can be defined in various ways, and
yes.
If you haven't got a particular moral framework, what constitutes the fittest organisation can look, pretty different to what you might expect it to.
Yep.
But I do think that for the flourishing of humankind, for the advancement of humankind, good products should thrive. They should thrive in the marketplace. And look, like so many technologies, of course, AI can be used for good or it can be used for ill. It really depends on the person who's driving it. And we've been living with AI for a long time now. You mentioned the iPhone, which was an absolute revolution because it really heralded the age of smartphones. And our smartphone is an AI device.
Yep.
So if you think, I don't want to interact with AI, if you've got a smartphone, and most people do these days, you're interacting with AI all the time.
Actually, even what Satya said is he said even just back in the days of, the red squiggly line in Word, like when you that's AI,
exactly.
We're already dealing with it. So
we deal with it all the time, but it didn't really have that label. And it can be used for good and evil. If I can just digress very briefly, John Lennox, who's is an academic. I think he was at Oxford University. I believe he's retired now. He's a mathematician by training, but he's done a lot of research on AI, and he wrote a book on it. And I understand he's just published a revised edition. And I heard him interviewed by John Anderson, who does a really good podcast. And John Lennox was saying that artificial intelligence has taken us to the point where it is actually feasible for human beings to live forever.
Wow.
Dying will be a choice. The big issue is whose choice. That's the big issue. Whose choice? And I can't be confident that it will be my choice, right? So that's where AI has taken us. AI has got us to the point where we could, in fact, deal with death in a different way to how Jesus did it and dealt with it. And I think that's an important thing for us to keep in mind. But when we use a search engine of any kind, that we're using AI anyhow. So what's happening here is that the facility is being greatly enhanced by the use of OpenAI, which is the base upon which GPT is built, and that's now being grafted into Bing, and I think Microsoft Edge as well, and Google have got a version of it either under development now, or it might even have been released.
That was quite funny because Microsoft did their launch of Bing and ChatGPT amongst some of their other things, and they did this launch, and it was polished, it was amazing, and it has impressed me. Actually, I must admit, Microsoft have really changed the game lately. I mean, right now, Dr. Rod and I and Yash, we're all meeting on Microsoft Teams. I've now transferred everything. My whole business pretty much runs through Microsoft Teams. Our apps, our servers are all on Microsoft servers now. They've kind of really reset from those days of Windows 95, where they had real control, and then they kind of lost it and everything like that. They're coming back, and now they're becoming quite dominant. But it's actually quite funny when you mentioned before about the competition, right? Like that competition is healthy, and unfortunately Google hasn't had it in the search space. They haven't had the competition, and there was a quote that Satya said is like, yes, Google are the 300-pound gorilla, and we're making them dance, and we're just proud to say that we're the ones that made them dance. And going back to like the fact that they've launched, it was like the day after or whatever, they had their own event, but they weren't planning on launching their search AI thing at the time, and they were scrambling, and it's actually funny when you see the comparisons of them. Is Microsoft did this, and this kind of comes back to the leadership stuff of like making sure that we are following our trends and following trends in the marketplace, but not scrambling and not finding ourselves too far behind, because that's what Google did. And their thing didn't work on stage, and it was there was errors in literally what they were doing, and it was just So I think it's funny that they launched they teased theirs as well because Microsoft did, and their shares just plummeted because of how they presented it. Sorry to interrupt you, but I found them fine. Very interesting.
Yeah, I don't think we've got anything really further to add, but AI is ubiquitous now. It's in most of our appliances, many of our appliances. If you have a look at the number of appliances attached to your internet service, you might get a shock. I looked last night, I think I had 16.
Wow.
So that includes electrical appliances these days, fridges and so on as well. We're surrounded by it.
Yeah, it's crazy. So we as leaders, I think just to bring it back to what we can learn as leaders from this is, number one, I encourage you need to research what's happening with AI, because you cannot be left behind. I'm talking with all of my clients about it. What can we do? Now, obviously, from a marketing standpoint, we can take advantage of these changes. If we can be ahead of the game, and this is kind of just a bit of free advice for you, marketing has always been about content. Back in radio, it was about radio content. Then obviously, newspapers was print content, and then you had television, and then marketing has always been about content. But the content changes towards the medium that is working in the season, right? A couple of years ago, it was social media. That was where the content was. I mean, this is what we're doing. We're creating content to promote, our knowledge and our experience, and hopefully get you to join our free leadership program. But content is the game. But now, content has become even more valuable because of AI. Whereas previously, you just had to have some articles or have some keywords on your page for it to come up in search. Now, because they're going to use AI, it's going to scrape the internet and present the best information in an even more succinct manner. It's so much more important that your content is so much better quality, so much of a higher standard, and using different mediums. And there's a whole bunch of different things, but you need to be looking into how your content now can feed into this next wave of search, which will be Bing and ChatGPT and Google's Butler, Barry, Brendan, whatever, I don't know. They gave it some random name. I think it was started with a B, Paul or something, I don't know. But it's happening, right? So we need to make sure that we run our businesses keeping up with those trends of marketing, but also the trends within our industry of how we interact with our clients, how we help people. I've been looking into it. We've been building our mobile app for the last 2 years, and we've got a couple of it's live on both Android and Apple. But there's a few more features we're ready to add. Once we've done that, my next thing is I've already been planning on how to build in AI to help answer questions for people. So I don't actually need to be able to give the answer to people, but they can, almost like a chat bot, but that's AI, right? And so I'm looking at how I can stay on the edge with that. How can you stay on the edge with your clients, making sure that you're ahead of the curve rather than falling behind like Google seemed to have? And as a bit of a side note, watch the video, check out the video below and see how the Microsoft CEO handles himself. It is, if you just watch it from that point of view, you'll get great value. I think it's a 20-minute interview. So treat yourself. And if you don't have the time, put the playback speed at 1.5 or something like that, so you go through it quicker. But talking about things changing, and I mean, going back to, we're talking about our topic of control the controllables. Like AI is happening. We can't control that, but we can control how we respond in our businesses, in our ministries, and how we can respond to that. Hey, you've just watched an excerpt from the On the Cube Leadership podcast. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. If it challenged your leadership or inspired you in some way, put a comment below. And if you want to watch the full episode or more content like this, check out our channel. And hey, consider subscribing while you're there.